Bobby J, the host of City Chapters podcast. Today's chapter, we're sitting with Bobby Enslow. He's the owner at Indaba with his wife, Sheena. Sheena was a young life coach for me, or leader for me, when I was in high school. So I've known her a lot of my life, and met Bobby at some point during business for what I do for client design and merchandise. And that was at that time that I learned he was married to Sheena once we started doing some business together. If you're from Spokane and you like coffee, you certainly know about Indaba. They are a beast in the coffee scene. Personally, some of my favorite coffee as well. And just the environment that they set at their place is, it feels good. Coffee's amazing. They have a great slogan, which is love coffee, love people, or
love people first.
Love people first. Love people first. Love people, love coffee. Yeah. And I like that. Love people first. So that's great. And I've done some business with Bobby, like I mentioned. It always trips me out because we got the same name. Even when I text you, I'm like, it's weird texting my own name.
I was like, Bobby E. I'm Bobby E then.
Yeah. We've had some great short conversations, and I admire what Bobby has done with his business and what he's done with Indaba, how far he's been able to take that brand. And I think it's one of the coolest brands we have locally in Spokane in general, from my perspective, just because everybody pretty much knows about Indaba, it feels like. So that's why I wanted to have him on and just, learn some more from him about his business acumen and his backstory. So that's my intro for Bobby. And thanks for coming on, Bobby.
Thanks, Bobby.
Thanks, Bobby. Bobby.
Yeah.
It's Bobby's world, man.
We got Bobby's world happening today.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me on. And yeah, like you said, I met you. I don't even know if you just came into the shop or reached out or something. And the OG Young Life world has this kind of like, network in Spokane. Like some of that, our original like coffee shirts and sweaters and stuff that really took off. People still request them and stuff, so we'll have to do like a throwback here eventually and do like a reprint because people still like request some of them. And I'm like, they're gone. They were like one-off things that we're doing, but yeah, thanks for having me on. And I don't know, a little bit backstory on me. My dad was 23 years Air Force, and so he met his wife, my mom, in Korea when he was stationed over in Korea. And I was just talking about this the other day with a customer, but I was kind of the oopser, because he had me late in life, and so I don't know how good that is for my childhood psychology. But
how old was your dad when he had you?
Oh, I mean, towards retirement. So I was born in 83, and he retired in like 85. 6 or something like that. 23 years in the Air Force. So I didn't experience your like traditional military kid. I was born in Korea, which is kind of unique, but then a couple years later they moved to Spokane, specifically because my dad's a big outdoorsman, like fly fishing and things like that. And he heard that, he'd never been to this area and there was a lot of lakes and things. And so he chose Fairchild to retire, and and so I grew up in Spokane, went to the same house, like went to North Central High School, and
you guys lived in town then.
Yeah, so I grew up down Indian Trail, went to Balboa, Salk, North Central, and then went to WSU. So it was very much like an inland, Spokane person, and so I grew up more in the family setting of like my mom's Korean. My dad's grew up in San Diego, and not, like I said, a traditional military kid, but more like small business owner family. Like he owned a restaurant for 9 years. So I got to really grow up like around the customers and in the restaurant, I'm basically in the restaurant all the time. And
what restaurant was that?
Pizzazz Pizza.
Pizza.
Up north in Wandermere. He had Pizzazz Pizza for 9 years. And
wow.
Best calzones in Spokane, man. Yeah. So it was. Now there's a Carl's Jr. there. So.
Oh man.
But I miss those days.
Pretty sweet growing up in a pizza joint.
Oh yeah.
Like, that's a kid's dream.
Yeah, it was legit.
Pizza parlor?
Yeah, man. I was eating from the nacho bar every day, and like
Yeah.
I got like those red quarters that I could play arcades all day, you know. But yeah, I definitely grew up just seeing how hard they worked. To the point where it affected my dad's health, and that was ultimately his decision to kind of take a break. And then he took a couple years off, and then he started a business in Pullman, kind of thinking like as I went to college, it was a place that I could kind of go work. And so I actually worked for my dad through college,
really,
in a little corner store. And so
what was that store?
A little store called Corner Market, which some people from that time will remember. My daddy was a bit of a legend, but he was Corner Market Bob was his name. The unofficial Greek god of beer is what they called him. But it was right in the middle of Greek Row. It was like the corner store, you know, in Pullman. And
I feel like I know where that is.
You probably do.
I think I've been. Yep.
You may have gone in there and got a couple 40s. I mean, that's kind of what you did back in the day.
Yeah.
And so I worked there. I would even go down in high school on like Apple Cup weekend and like just stock beer and like and shelves and help them. And so I just kind of grew up just really honoring and respecting and seeing firsthand like small businesses and small business owners and how much work they put into it. And my dad really just loved and cared about his employees. And I always that just blew my mind how much he just genuinely cared about his employees and his customers. And to the point where he'd go and advocate for them, like at City Hall or like at the Greek Council or whatever. Like he would be, you know, advocates for you know, his customers and his employees. And so, it's funny because I never thought, I almost told myself when they owned the restaurant that I would never start a restaurant because I saw how much work it was, and they basically broke even at the end of 9 years, you know?
Right.
And I was like, I'm never going to do that. I'm going to go and get a good job and I'm going to provide and all these things. And, but my story is like, you know, that was kind of my track. I got a finance degree and got my master's in business, and it's like, hey, I'm going to go and get this good job. But there was just this calling from my mentor, who was my youth pastor in high school, but he just became a good friend and mentor. It was like, hey, you should start a business in West Central Spokane. And, you know, I think it should be a coffee shop. And, you know, initially I was like, no, like I'm going to go and find a really good paying job and I'll support, you know, causes through paycheck, you know. And but that summer is when I went to South Africa, and that's where the Indaba name comes from. And but that experience in Africa, just seeing the wealth and poverty and just a lot of the different things that I saw there, I mean, that's its own story. Really called me to like want to do something in my own hometown.
How old were you when you went down there?
That was like in my 20s, yeah.
Early 20s?
Yeah, early 20s. I was probably 22, you know, at the time. But just experiencing like that poverty and then feeling called to what was the main, I guess, point there was how much of a gap there was from rich and poor and coffee shops and coffee. And it's like this place where we can hopefully bridge some gaps and like connect people, you know? And I felt like it was just so like South Africa is just, you know, their history of division, right? Like just a history of apartheid and all that kind of stuff. And so like just having a passion for, and coffee shops really was that. Like people ask me like, were you into coffee before Indaba? I was like, actually, no. Like, but I was into like community and like bringing people together and trying to create positive change somehow. And that's really kind of the birth of Indaba was like, how are we creating this community space where everyone was welcome and how can we make it sustainable? Well, we sell cups of coffee. You know, I guess Starbucks is doing it. They're going around and creating these spaces where community happens. And then I'm in it making coffee, and now I'm learning about coffee. And, you know, I'm kind of a nerd when it came to like beer and wine and stuff. So I just started nerding it out on coffee. And then, because I even have some old regulars, you know, would come in and be like, yeah, your coffee actually wasn't that great in like 2009 when you first started, but I went in to support you, you know. But now, like, you know, they've like, you've grown a lot, you've learned a lot. And it's true. I mean, like, I didn't know really what I was doing. I was fortunate to learn under a couple of barista champions and stuff and go to like, you know, some specialty early specialty coffee roasters that were just starting out in the area and learned from them. But there wasn't resources like there are now where you could just go buy a book and learn coffee science.
Yeah.
It was a lot of just trial and error and pulling a lot of shots and tasting it and seeing, oh, that tasted gross and that tasted better. And then really there was, Indaba, if anyone has like come to the original Indaba from the beginning, they just know that it's evolved so much. Like it's completely different than it was in 2009. And just determining like, what it is from a product standpoint that people are wanting to buy from us, but also like from a value standpoint of what Indaba wants to stand for and like be. And in the beginning there was, even though like it was rooted in this idea of like, we want to create a community space in a tough neighborhood and create jobs and change, a lot of the focus of our business was creating the best product possible. And so our mantra when we first started was simply great coffee. Like we wanted to just be really simple and create really, really good coffee. Mm-hmm. But the problem with that mantra is it almost put all of our attention on the product and not the people. Mm-hmm. And like earlier we were saying people first, right? Mm-hmm. So that like was a growth for me. And so we started in 2009. So in 2012 is when we started kind of like getting a reputation. I was voted one of Spokane's best baristas. And so we were like featured in a whole bunch of stuff. Then STCU picked me up for like all their commercials. And then all of a sudden I started getting a little local celebrity and stuff was happening. And our mantra was still rooted in this idea of like being about like coffee and having the best coffee. But ironically, like what really was helping us grow was like our story about community and like people and why we were in that neighborhood. Mm. And so there was like this weird disconnect where all of our focus was on like our product, but the people were loving us more, not just because of our product. Because honestly, like coffee, you can get coffee almost anywhere. I mean, sure, there's a good and bad coffee, but it's become like,
it's everywhere.
It's everywhere. So it's like, well, what makes us different? Well, our story is what makes us different. And ultimately, what are we about? So like in 2012, it kind of went through this, I don't know, like a re-enlightening of like what Indaba really is supposed to be about and was rooted on. Even to the point where I started realizing a lot of our staff, weren't in alignment with that. And so Love People, Love Coffee came out of that time of, because it was Love Coffee, Love People, even when we first started. And then it wasn't until one of our staff was like, that's backwards. And I was like, oh yeah, like putting people first. And so Love People, Love Coffee. And then after we kind of re-envisioned like what our core mantra is and what we're supposed to be about, like it allowed us to slowly start kind of weeding out the people that didn't fit with that culture.
It's like that start with why.
Yeah. So we understood that like ultimately it's about people first. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we're passionate about coffee and we want to produce really, really good coffee. But honestly, like
that's the byproduct, right?
That's the means, that's the byproduct, it's
catalyst,
the tool.
Maybe.
Exactly. Yeah. Like it's there. And funny thing is we sell a lot of matcha too. Like we don't just sell coffee. Like people come into Indaba because of the people, because of the vibe. Because
I do.
Yeah.
I've been starting to work your Riverside one more often just because I'm like working from home all the time. I got to get around just people and environments. And I like your environment the best out of coffee shops. So that Riverside
and
one.
You hung out with Shane Thompson too? You did a podcast recently?
Yeah, me and Shane are brothers.
Yeah.
We grew up. He was a mentor for me too in high school. I've known him since I was in probably like 7th grade minimum.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So, and maybe longer than that, but for sure by 7th grade, we knew each other. And we've been brothers ever since. Yeah. So
he was a big part of that enlightening experience because he would come in, and at the time he was working for YFC, and he'd bring kids in and different people in and get coffee, and he was just getting into coffee and stuff. And but out of all the coffee places, like he just kept reinforcing to me that like, Bobby, Indaba is like the only coffee place where I don't feel judged when I come in. Like I feel like I'm welcome here. And and at that time there was definitely some shops in town where you walk in and you almost feel like you're not cool enough to be there. It's like that's not like what a coffee shop should be, at least in my opinion. That's not what I wanted Indaba to be, right? So I was like, absolutely, Indaba, like. And so one of our core values, we have a list of them, is do not judge. Like we don't judge people when they come in.
Yeah.
Our job is just to
That's
love
a good
people.
one, man.
Yeah.
That's a hard one too. It's a good one. It's a hard one.
It's a good one and a hard one.
Because I try not to judge others, but it's so instinctually built into us for self-defense mechanisms, so, for survival that we're like, oh, but that's the practice of not judging people is huge, man. And that makes obviously a huge ripple effect in your business and the way it feels in there.
Yeah.
So just to put that out there for your employees to understand, like, we're not doing that here, that makes a lot of sense why it feels so good in there.
It changed the approach. Like, I mean, at the time in like 2012, 13, 14, quote unquote, third wave coffee, it's still being thrown out there. But even though I feel like we've passed that wave, but it was like a way of referring to that kind of renaissance in coffee of like more purist and elitist. And the problem is with that movement is it created that super pretentious barista kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And that was something that we had to come out of really fighting and realizing like, and for me, it was actually what finally took me to the next level was like coming to fully appreciate the diversity in coffee itself. Like there isn't a right and wrong way, I go and I have a beer with my dad and I drink Bud Light. Do I go to like local breweries and drink IPAs? Yes, but that doesn't mean I can't go and have a good beer with my dad, even good beer with my dad, but I have a beer with my dad, like, and then drink Bud Light. I don't care. Like I'm having a beer with my dad, like, but I think that it became, for some reason, like coffee was like, you have to drink it this way or whatever it is. And it has to be roasted this way. And it's like, no, I think, I came to appreciate it. Like, you know what? Like I grew up drinking Folgers with my dad and, 3 packets of sugar and cream, just like my dad used to drink, and so there's something nostalgic and something that I can appreciate about that. And I almost came to appreciate just the diversity, because people would even argue over like, what's a cappuccino? Like, what's a real cappuccino? Or what's a macchiato? What's a real macchiato? And like, and it's like, I just want to know what my customer wants and make it for them the best that I can, and kind of actually really appreciate
it's pointless
the diversity of it. You know what I mean? Like, and there's
sure.
beauty in the diversity, and like going to Spain and like they drink different drinks, but it's coffee. And then go to Australia, they drink different drinks, even within the United States, you go to California, they got different drinks, and how this, crazy little fruit seed is like evolved into this really complex, beverage that has created its own like little subcultures around the world of, how people prepare it and drink it and roast it. And that just connected me almost to a deeper humanity too, of like this deeper diversity, and I'm a pretty spiritual person. So like just connecting it to that, and then connecting it to, our fellow humans and the different cultures on the planet. And I was just like, man, like coffee, this is this crazy representation of that, like, and I can either choose to be that judgmental type of person. Like this is the right way to be a human or the right way to think, or I can be more of an open-minded person that is willing to like sit down with people and like truly hear them and like try to understand their perspective and how they were raised. And like, cause like, we're just extremely complicated, creatures, this is just a small little bean that we roast and brew, and yet we blow it up to this thing. And and so coming out of the pandemic especially has been a huge emphasis on kind of shifting our culture a little bit. And so it's not a new mantra, but it's like our current vision for the company is cultivate connection. Love people, love coffee is, like our mantra and is like the deep root of who we are. But coming out of the pandemic, I don't know what you would call it, kind of created this vision of like, now is our time to help cultivate connection, because people have been disconnected through the pandemic itself. But, that's just, I think, amplified what was already politically going on, socially. Yeah. Right? Like, you have, the pandemic just like amplified everything. It just turned it all the way up. It was just like, and so, okay, well, what are we called to do as this little small coffee shop in, Spokane? What is something that we can do try to make some sort of change, and that's cultivating connection. If that's just being a space where people can connect.
Cultivate and connection, or is it cultivate connection?
Cultivate connection.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So
Right.
whether that's like people are coming in and we are actually like connecting people. Like one of my favorite things to do when I'm on bar working is actually connecting regulars with each other, because you start to, when you're on bar, you just build a relationship with all your customers coming in. But what's cool is that when you get to that point, you start to see connections that should be made. And I don't know if that's a gifting that I've been given, but being able to connect people, I just love connecting people.
I believe that's a gift.
Yeah. And I'm like, hey, Roger, you need to meet, Woody over here. He's doing like this amazing development work.
It's a choice too.
Yeah.
It's a choice that you choose to do that, and you look for that as well.
Yeah.
So
Just
I
consciously connect, growing. And I think it might be rooted in like, as a kid, I was isolated a lot. And like in my elementary school years, thinking back,
In what ways?
I would just isolate myself a lot.
Oh, like by your own decision.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting
just like
because
shy.
I was shy. I would isolate. I would be teased, and I don't know if it was because I was like the only Asian in the class or whatever. I mean, it could be that, but or just I don't know. But it wasn't really until college that I kind of like broke more into my extroverted side, which then I discovered I actually am more of an extroverted person, and I'm more alive when I am in that state. And when I isolate and I disconnect from people is when I just start getting all the negative
depression,
all the negative stuff. Depression, all that stuff.
Man,
And so that I think Indaba also comes out of that passion of like, I know that isolating and being alone is a horrible place for me. And so like if I can be a conduit to connect people or like create spaces that create connection, that just brings life to me, because I know that is just so important. And I truly believe like humans are, got to be in community and relationship. And even studies are coming out now, like science that's backing that up. Like people live longer, they're healthier when they have deeper rooted connections with people and other humans.
I just read a book called Ikigai. It's the Japanese word for your purpose, essentially.
Oh, yeah.
That's what it basically translates to. But it talks about super centurions in there from Japan, specifically from Osaka, the island. And then I think I don't know, is it Okinawa? That's on Osaka. Either way, they're from Osaka, which is like this tropical island, that's part of the Japanese empire now. It wasn't always, but either way, these people there, they live past 110 all the time. Like there's a ton of them there. And like the biggest thing that they do is they have a garden and they get together with their friends every day. Every single day. And they walk a lot. They don't really drive so much there. They rather walk. But, those are the three. Stay active, do something a day. And they don't believe in extensive workouts. They believe in just, you got to move your body. They believe in friendships every day. They're with their friends. Even when they're like, like to them, it's funny in the book, it says like 80-year-olds are like kids to them. Like you're still a child. Like you got a long ways to go, and it's interesting their way of living in society, and it's beautiful, and that book was really, really great on talking about community. I mean, there's a lot of points, man, there's so much that you said that is like all that I agree with and things that I'm trying to foster in the city chapters. Like one of my mottos is rep and connect, represent where you're from, your community. And I mean that in a positive way. I don't mean it in like represent your hood in a negative way, kind of where that street logo originated was like, yeah, rep where you're from. But that kind of had a negative connotation. I'm trying to transmute that into being like, no, it's okay to represent where you're from with love and passion and connect with other people that feel the same way about the same place or another place. And, like connecting, this podcast for me is all about connecting and strengthening connections with people that I already do know, or if I don't know them, having this time to sit with them and create a connection with them so that I can really figure out how to put all the pieces together for what I really want to do with city chapters. Because you talked about coffee being a catalyst. And initially, like, clothing was like the way I wanted to make money, but now it's the catalyst for the brand to be seen in, the community, in the streets. But it's not the purpose of what I really want to do with city chapters. It's just, I like that we have that same thought process. Like, no, coffee is a way. It's a means to an end. And that's how I look at like what I want to do with my clothing. Like, I'm going to do great work with my clothing. It's going to be high end. It's going to mean something special when you wear it, but it's really to represent the deeper essence of what City Chapter is really trying to stand for and be about. And it's been a lot of work for me because I've had to grow so much as a person to even have the tenacity to start and run a brand like this, because the original purpose of it changed just like yours did. It started off with, we're going to sell coffee. It's going to be the best. That's kind of the same thing that happened with me and my product and my idea for city chapters. And I realized, no, it's way bigger than this. It's not about the clothes alone. It's about how do I create some kind of organization that has pull in society, but also encourages people to understand like doing and helping others is where we all need to be. And you're not a loser if you want to do that. Like it's like the return you're going to get from just the general community, if you put that kind of energy out there, is it can help, and it does help. I guess you just got to choose where you want to be.
Well, that's the big thing from Simon Sinek's takeaway is like, people buy why you do it, not what you do, right?
Yeah.
So if City Chapters is representing something deeper than just, a nice hoodie or a nice shirt, but it has this deeper why of, like you said, like repping where you're from in a positive way and connecting to other places. Like, even though I was born in Korea, Spokane's my home.
Yeah.
This is where I was raised. This is where I'm attached to. This is where I felt called back to even after traveling. It's like, this is where I want to invest my time, money, and energy. I'm raising my family. Like, we still live in West Central. Our kids all go to school in the neighborhood. We're investing in our property. We're investing in our business, investing back in our employees. Like having a brand that can kind of represent that. Yeah. Like, Spokane is my home, and I am passionate about Spokane, and I'm not going to position that as hating on other cities, but I'm going to position that as being proud of my city and acknowledging that there's more to do.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is like, so Indaba's got to the point where we're now multi-city, which is kind of weird to think, but we're Tri-Cities, we're Kennewick, and we just opened Yakima, last week. And so
nice.
What's interesting is that it's funny that I'm meeting with you now just after our grand opening there, is that I feel like cities desperately need that sense of community. Like, I feel like, there's a lot of disunity from the different people that I've met in these different cities, where people just feel fragmented and there isn't a sense of
separated,
and so, but like, if we could create, like, I'm trying to create places where people can connect and do that. And you're trying to create a brand that represents like people like-minded that, hey, this is where I'm from. This is where I want to invest. And and I'm proud of it. I mean, I think, a couple of like Spokane Doesn't Suck was kind of a similar kind of trendy thing that was touching on that kind of similar principle of like, hey, Spokane doesn't suck, guys. Like, it actually is kind of cool, and obviously it's a fun viral phrase, that exploded there for a minute. But I think it does touch deeply on like almost this level of, that there is, every city has like a subgroup of haters, I feel like.
Oh, yeah.
Like that just hate on it. And
anywhere
people,
you go, people aren't going to be happy. Like, people that's just human nature, I guess, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, but I even see it like I see it like trying to make its way back into Spokane even too. Like even people who
Oh,
have like invested and put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in like Spokane and trying to make it better, in the
yeah,
hospitality industry or whatever it is.
yeah,
And there's going to be different seasons, just like in life and anything, where like man, like things are just cruising and going great, and then you're going to hit tough times and
yep,
tough things are going to happen, and it's like, well, are you? That's when you're going to get tested. Like, are you? Your character's tested, your
yeah.
values are tested, your all that stuff, and so it's like,
I love that,
yeah.
man. I love where this is going. So you're saying in some ways you feel that there's kind of a degress in the progress that we've been making in Spokane as far as like the community, how people feel about Spokane, and now there's some more negativity potentially coming
I'm
in.
starting to sense that, and
Yeah.
and obviously social media isn't the perfect like test for sensing things, but at the
Yeah.
same time, it
Yeah.
kind of is. Like you can kind of get a
It's
pulse,
reflection of mind states.
But yeah, and I'm more connected with like small business owners and people and restaurateurs and stuff. And obviously, we've been hit super hard with the pandemic, and people don't realize that we're still crawling out of a deep hole that the pandemic created for restaurants and things. And so, especially more of the artisan mom and pop restaurants, I feel like the chains loved it. They just were rolling in the drive-throughs. We're rolling. I think 30% up was like one figure that I heard. But like the local restaurants that literally create community, they like the same way Indaba does. These local pubs and restaurants create connection and community. And what's interesting is that one of my friends at Whitworth is a professor, and what he studies is actually empathy. And one of the core things that you need for empathy to like grow and thrive and exist is place, a sense of place. And that's the thing that literally was dismantled during the pandemic is this sense of place. And what's interesting is that's literally what your brand is trying to do, is create a sense of place. But physically, tangibly, like pizza places, coffee shops, pubs, breweries, like those are places where people are congregating and creating a sense of place and community. And without those, empathy can't actually exist. So then you have a whole bunch of people who just have zero empathy with each other. And we all know what that looks like when you don't you have no way of putting your mind in that other person's shoes. You're just going to treat them like crap. They're just an object, which is exactly what social media and things has created.
Oh, it's terrible.
We're just all objects. We're just little bits of pieces, avatars on the the metaverse now, right? So and that's what those are the challenges that we're going to be starting moving into, because people, you're seeing like people just stealing stuff, not even respecting other people's stuff, and it's because there's no empathy, there's no sense of place, there's no sense of community, there's no sense of interconnectedness. And understanding that like your prosperity is also my prosperity.
Man, I relate with everything you're saying. It's part of why I started city chapters, and as time has gone on, it was like really more apparent. I mean, really, I've always wanted to create something where I felt like there was an immense, strong community. Like where I belong. And if I have to create it, I will. So like, I mean, as much as, you say all these things, it's like why I'm trying to figure out city chapters. Like, how do I create what I think is missing? Because dude, I don't feel like I belong anywhere other than with my immediate family. I don't feel connected with my community in Spokane hardly. Like this podcast is helping me work through that. So it's like the reason, that saying like, if you don't see something in the world, well, go create it. That's what I decided to do. I'm still working it out. And it's a big, large mission because it's really deep to me. And I've learned like, I can't be in a hurry for this. One is like myself. I have to get right with myself, my own, like I got to feel like I can belong within myself, because I think that was one of my biggest problems. And I've gotten to a level now where I feel okay with myself. I can be with myself and just be okay with that. So now I have a strong base again because I've had to put in the work there. And it took me years and years and years. I'm 33 now. Been knowing and what I needed to do probably since I was like 21 when I was locked up. I had like some epiphanies when I was locked up for that 6 months, but I couldn't really implement the discipline because I wanted to barter with life. And life kept teaching me over and over again, like, you need to do these things to be okay with yourself, to live in accordance with what your truth is. So after many times of being slapped down, and me making poor decisions and involving myself in environments and friendships that really weren't beneficial as far as personal growth goes, and like at least the life that I really truly wanted to live, you know, God or whatever you want to call it, the Almighty, the universe, really kind of just cattle guarded me because I'm the stubborn knucklehead. And it was like, all right, dude, like, you know, and we're just going to keep making it harder and harder for you until you wake up. And then I've, you know, implemented the discipline for quite a while now. I'm finally just starting to see results, and I'm finally starting to feel okay with myself. But I think that's the core of why we don't have strong communities, is because I think a lot of us are not okay with ourselves. You know what I mean? And like, how I can't speak for everybody, but I've spoken with enough people that I know a lot of people do struggle with it. So
Sure.
I can't speak and say everybody's there.
Mental health is so huge right now, like,
Yeah.
and depression and all those things. And I remember, you know, you're using the phrase being okay with yourself. And I remember like my freshman year in college having kind of that epiphany, having an epiphany of basically, you know, coming from like a Christian background, you know, if the God of the universe or the creator loves me infinitely, and he sees me as having infinite worth, then why don't I see myself that way?
Yeah.
So literally, if like this all-powerful being created the universe, the divine, whatever you want to call it, sees me as having infinite worth and loving me unconditionally, why can't I do it to myself? And that was this really kind of mind-boggling position. Like, am I that pretentious and prideful that I literally would put myself above the creator himself to be like, you know, and like hold myself at that standard when even he doesn't, like, or she doesn't, you know? So it's like, I don't know, man. Like, that was like the starting of my journey of discovering, like, and breaking down all that negative, just all those negative thoughts that you have and those about yourself and, you know, the mistakes that you've made, because we've all made them, you know, growing up, and even every day you make mistakes and you do shit. I yell at the kids, or, you know, lose my temper or whatever it is, you know, and, you know, beat myself up about it. And I'm a type 3 Enneagram. And so basically I'm they call it the achiever class or whatever, but basically I put a lot of my self-worth and identity in like achievements and like accolades and like accomplishing tasks and performing, right? And so if I fail at something, it can affect me a lot. If I'm not in a good, healthy place and in understanding my identity and knowing, you know, my worth, even if I do just a stupid little thing, it will just like devastate me for the day. Like, it will just get into my brain and be like, you're a piece of crap, like all day. Like, you're just a horrible person, horrible, you know, and it could be literally like something little, like, I don't even know, like
putting a lid on a coffee and it didn't go right.
Yeah,
and then
put the lid on
you
wrong,
get pissed, and then
or I just forgot to put a dish in the sink, or my wife is just like, hey, could you do this next time? Like, she's not even calling me out. She's just like, hey, next time when you do that, could you do this? She's just trying to be helpful. And then I'm just like, you know, getting upset that I like screwed up or did something wrong. And
I think we have a lot of similarities there.
Yeah, and I think like everyone has to go through their journey of understanding kind of how their being is wired and how their body and their brains and spirit and heart and all that is wired, and then once you can kind of break down the almost the base code of like your being, like your body, then you can hopefully, like, I don't think you can actually rewire it. I feel like there's certain neural pathways that are just like hard set after certain points in your life. There's I forget the term for it, but basically your brain becomes kind of hardwired. And so then you kind of have to just teach yourself like subroutines out of that, like, this is how that's going to affect me. How am I going to get out of that? And so, because, like people who have tempers and things like that, like they're probably always going to have that reaction to certain things just because their brain is literally hardwired to react certain ways. But then it's like, how can you quickly course correct?
It's management, I think, a lot of it, because I have severe anger problems, and they were out of control for most of my life. And if alcohol was introduced, like there's no telling what could happen, so alcohol has been one of the biggest things that's always held me back, and that mixed with my anger,
Yeah, because your control over your body goes away. And
if
you don't have control over your body, then it's just...
Well, even just getting angry releases chemicals that makes you lose control of your decision making. You add that with
people
alcohol.
Literally black out when they get angry.
I've blacked out thousands of times, man. Like, honestly, that many times. That just is a credit to how much I was drinking and the lifestyle I was living. It was dark and it was ugly and it was crazy. I always felt spiritual and called to a higher cause, but I just didn't know how to get away from what I was into sometimes. And I did. I can't say that I didn't, but you
just weren't at that place yet. Like,
it's one of those things. It's, easier said than done. You could want to be a better person. We all want to be better people. Deep down, everybody really wants to, but you're going to make your choices, and whether they align with your higher cause, your higher self or not, that, a lot of us give up on it. And it's easy to. You get hurt by somebody and you're mad at the world, so you just want to hurt the world too, or yourself, whatever it is, or both. It was both for me, like I just didn't care about myself. I didn't love myself. And I always was big on respect, but I realized at some point, I was like, bro, you don't even respect yourself. And you want people to respect you, or you think you can respect others, but you don't even respect yourself. Same thing with love. Like you can't love others if you don't love yourself. Like not in, I don't know, maybe that's possible, but I think that it's really hard to love others or have empathy for others if you don't have that for yourself. How could you show anybody those types of emotions if you can't allow that for yourself? And I think people can do it, but I don't think they're not happy either. You know what I mean? So like maybe you can love others and you don't really take care of yourself well because you're giving so much to others, but what are you losing in regards to that? So that balance of like, once you love yourself, then you can love people in a healthy way, I think, more than it is unhealthy. Because if you're loving others and you're not loving yourself, that's unbalanced.
Well, for me, it would be like loving others or performing for others to somehow try to give some sort of worth to myself.
Right. And I agree with that.
And to feed into my own like self-worth by how others would respond. So when others responded negatively, I immediately, like, my self-worth would be like nowhere. And so I think, the goal is to get to the place where it's like it's naturally overflowing out of you, rather than a sense of like dependency. Like I have to like constantly be, that's like the people pleaser, part of me, I guess, or whatever. And so, and I've been lucky that I've been able to kind of grow out of that season. But again, like the cycles are still there because that's kind of hardwired into me. And so just having to constantly remind myself of how my brain is functioning and how like my being is functioning and my base code, and making sure that I'm keeping that in check and And yeah.
Another good book that I am still reading is Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza. And he does like a lot of brain and meditation science. So he actually like studies the brain scientifically and meditation scientifically. And like he can has all this data that shows like how meditation helps activate and rewire the mind and different things like that. The book's really good. I feel like I've learned a lot about it. And you know, I like you said, I don't know if you can ever truly get away from certain base codes that you're saying. Like I like that base code, but I think you can learn how to manage it, or as soon as it starts, you can also counteract. And that's something that I've learned with my anger.
It's almost like you can't change the base code, but you could maybe add to it.
Yeah, something there
You
to
could
where
add something that's like, okay, like, you know, this is going to be triggered, but I'm immediately going to like fire back with this. You know?
yeah, and or you can like it's going to happen, right? It comes down to how quick can you recognize it and not let it take control, whatever that negative part of you is, you know. Anger's an easy one for men. You know, a lot of us, I'm trying to get away from saying we all, you know, but safely we can say quite a bit of men deal with anger issues.
Sure.
You know,
we got more testosterone.
Yeah. It's, man, I'm a maniac sometimes when I get angry, and it's bad, and it emanates from me, and people can feel it. And I've done really well throughout my life at points of keeping it at bay from the public. But, you know, there was plenty of times too during partying and fighting and stuff where my rage got way out of control. And I'm sure there's, you know, quite a people that have seen my rage or my anger, and it's ugly, you know, and it's not something I want anybody to see or experience. Now, I think there was a time where I used that to, you know, instill fear in others or whatever it was in the lifestyle that I was living at one point. So I embraced it, you know, it was a way to
control people around you.
Yeah, control or put fear,
yeah, sure.
you know, but yeah, I think just going back to like how do you build community? How do you get people to love people if we're not feeling it in Spokane? You know, like there's a lot of times I don't feel it in Spokane.
Sure.
And honestly, that's why I do city chapters. I'm trying to foster and encourage people to be proud of Spokane.
Yeah.
The Spokane doesn't suck thing just it insinuates that it does suck though. And so
there's a group of people that believe that.
Yeah. And there is that. And I grew up on that. Like when I grew up in Spokane, I mean, I don't really recall that many people that were in love with it here.
That's true. I mean, I grew up definitely with this mentality of everyone wanted to get out of Spokane, like they were trapped or something, you know, like
trapped.
You know, but I think, you know, word. I think that, yeah, at the same time, it's funny because then those people move back to Spokane.
Yeah.
To like raise their families. So then they restart the cycle.
Yeah, you find out maybe elsewhere isn't better than you thought, and
I think that's the thing. Is I feel like that's actually the thing that you're going to find in every city is the grass. It's the grass is greener, right? Like, oh, the grass is greener on the other side, and I've actually run up against that a lot with my staff. That you know that they have in their mind like, oh, eventually I want to move to Portland, or eventually I want to move to Seattle, or eventually I want to move. It'll be better once I get to there. But it's like, well, what are you doing now to make, like, now is the present. Now is where you're existing, you know, in the space-time continuum. Like now is where you are. Yeah. So like, how are you changing your perspective and your attitude and your whatever? And one of my first bosses that I ever worked for, his advice was like, wherever you are, like plant roots as if that's like your forever home. Like, and treat it as if that's where you're supposed to be forever. And it changes kind of your focus and how you make decisions to be more long-term thinking, and that's something I respect of the Asian culture a lot. Is I remember even studying in business school, in America, we have our like 1, 5, 10-year plans, like our 3-year business plans or whatever it is. In Japan, it's like 20, 30, 50, 100-year business plans, like dynasties. Like they're thinking like so long-term that it's like you're going to make decisions differently, and a great book to read. I actually haven't read his book, but I've listened to a lot of his stuff around the idea of infinite game theory. So Simon Sinek, Start with Why, all that kind of stuff. I'm a big Simon Sinek fan, but Infinite Game Theory is kind of one of his newer books. But it's kind of similar in the sense of, if we're in business to try to put that other guy out of business, like you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
Like, especially if you think of that other business owner as like your neighbor. Like, do I really want to destroy my neighbor's livelihood?
Yeah.
Or can we actually support each other so we're both thriving? Because isn't the point to infinite game theory? Like, isn't the point just to keep playing the game and like keep our businesses going and thriving and existing? And if both of us are doing well, then our community is doing well, and you're able to provide for your family, and I can provide for my family, and we're doing good, and we're providing healthy competition for each other to make each other better, but we're also competing against ourselves to make ourselves better. And there's just a lot to unpack with that principle that he talks about in his book and in his research. But that's impacted me a lot in terms of, because I loved, it's easy for anyone to love to compare. Grass is greener. Like, oh man, what's that company doing? Like, man, they're better at that than me. Like, I want to get better. I want to be good at that. Like, I want to do that.
And that's great. Like that part is great. It's when you, are so focused on destroying somebody else and their business that that's a sin against nature. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. That's maybe an extreme statement, but
you start making short-term decisions though. What happens
is you're focused on them. You're not focused on you and what you're doing.
Yeah.
It becomes about them. It's not even now about your product and your dream or your mission, your why anymore. I mean, if your why is to take another person out, you got to rearrange it. Yeah.
You're only going to last for so long. You know? And until that, okay, now the guy's out of business, and then you're there, and then it's over. It's the, it's the classic example that Simon shares of the Wright brothers. And the Wright brothers were trying to create flight for the first time. And they owned a bike shop and built bikes, I guess, or something, and but no one remembers the other guy that was fully funded and backed by the Department of Defense and all that.
I know that.
Yeah, and I can't even remember his name. That's literally how memorable he is.
Yeah,
and as soon as he lost, he quit. He stopped. Even though, like, if he was passionate truly about changing the world through flight, he would have been right at their door saying, "Show me how you did it." Like, how can we learn together to make it even better? And no, he's just like, oh, I lost. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm moving on to the next thing. And so I think when we're, passionate about something deeper, passionate about truly trying to make the world better and in the ways that we can through our vocations or whatever it is, making apparel, making cups of coffee, we have the ability to make it deeper than just the tangible thing that you're creating. So.
Yeah, I really want to figure out how to foster and get back to that deeper sense of community. You know, there was probably moments that I had it maybe like in young life and times when I was at the church, but I realized there was a lot of things there that just weren't for me, at that particular church I grew up in. I loved young life. It's just that I got out of high school, but like some of my most memorable and favorite moments were at Young Life camps, specifically Malibu. I was able to go there 2 years. And that was like, how do I get to a place where I can help create those kind of experiences as well, like, because for me, I want to get into the realm of like, how do, you cultivate community connection like you're talking about. But I want to really do that as well as cultivating like amazing experiences, because I want to experience them. I see things that I'm like, I don't know where this exists. So if I can, if I can create it, I know others will enjoy it too. And I don't expect everybody would want to be a part of what I want to do or that they have interest, but I know there will be plenty that do as well.
What's cool is that I think, there are a lot of little pockets of community going on. I know, like we have a running community, we have a basketball community, and community kind of happens around like similar interests and things like that. And but it takes a certain level of intentionality,
Definitely.
To like intentionally like look up that organization or that running club or that gym or but when you start, it's funny though, when you start looking around that like people are like humans are desperate for connection and community, and you see it happening in those places because that's what they're, Sheena just started going to a CrossFit gym, and she went there and realized she knew a lot of the people there. She's like, whoa. And the thing that she loves most about it is the community that she's found there.
Yeah.
Not just going and working out and leaving. It's like, it's the fact that like as soon as she walked in, someone walked up to her and was like, hey, are you new here? Like, let me show you around.
Yeah.
And then
awesome.
Seeing all the other people that she knew from the community and
my gym is not like that. My gym is not like that at all.
Well, I'll hook you up afterwards. No, but it's, I think that, gosh, like that's, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I think, if we're all striving to try and, I don't know, if we're all strive to connect, and it's the whole like love your neighbor, it comes down to it.
Yeah.
The ultimate call, like there was a 1 year, like I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, where I really felt like that year was the theme for me of growth, was trying to deconstruct everything down to what ultimately is the most important thing. And it just boiled it all down as just, loving God and loving people is kind of what it boiled down to for me, and ultimately at the end of the day, that's, if I focus on those things, I guess I can't, fail. Like, but it's also the most complicated thing,
Yeah, because I was going to ask this question. How do you perceive loving people, but also at the same time, like protecting yourself and your family and your business, right? Because like loving people entails that you're going to be there for them no matter what they're going through, right? And right, that's like the traditional kind of thought of love. So I think that scares people to be like, to love people, I can't show these people love because then they're going to be attached to me, or they think they can get stuff from me. And there's like all this that comes.
That's been a journey for us. Yeah.
Yeah. There's all that comes with it. So like, I find that's where I struggle with it. Like I want to love people, but then it's like you show some
but like
people
to a limit.
Yeah, but then it's like, whoa, like hold up, like I mean, yes, like, but that's too much, Now we're going too far with, my personal space, or
sure,
you thinking that we're at a way deeper level of love than we are,
Sure.
You know what I mean? So how do you?
I think, that's a great kind of perspective or thought to bring up, because I think one thing that I've had to learn over the years is I've definitely tipped the scale too far one direction, where I loved on an employee beyond really what was actually loving to the entire company. So like, I think you can't be blinded to like, oh man, I really need to pour all my love into this one individual at the expense of basically loving everyone else in the community and everyone, and in my own family, like you said, like protecting your family, all the things. So I think learning healthy boundaries was a very important thing. And like, where do we draw these boundaries? Where do things go to? And that's okay.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't mean you don't love them.
Exactly.
It means, if anything, you love them even more because you're trying to teach them like there's some healthy boundaries here.
Yeah.
And the big thing that I've learned a lot through my wife Sheena is just the concept of enabling too, right? Like you can also be an enabler, even though you could almost use the justification as like, well, I'm loving them by doing X, Y, and Z. Well, are you, or are you just enabling their lifestyle or whatever it is that they're doing? Like, are you actually not? So, everyone knows tough love,
tough love,
things like that.
I'm big about the tough love.
Absolutely. There's a certain point where it's like,
I'm not going to accept
we
your
love
bullshit.
you, but these are your healthy boundaries. We're not going to put up with X, Y, and Z. And we've literally kicked family out of our house because it's like you've breached it. Like it's done. Like we were clear.
The same.
So I'm sorry, you're gone.
Yeah.
Like you're not doing that.
I've had to do the same.
So it's, we love you and we'll help you get out of here, but you got to go, And so I think that's the thing it's tough. People are tough. They're complicated. There's lots of things and people are messy. And I mean, I was just on the phone with a guy who's in jail right now and he's going to be sent off to Eastern here pretty soon. And he's someone that I have
Eastern
a relationship.
Hospital?
He has someone that I have a relationship with, and it's grown to the point where, he can reach out to me and I can do what I can with my limited bandwidth to assist and help. But obviously he has a lot of work that he's got to do, and I can't do it for him. And even like you said, like, even if you want to change, sometimes it's still hard to change, even if like you consciously want to change. Certain things just kind of have to happen, people call it rock bottom sometimes or whatever, but there's certain series of events I feel like, that need to happen. And so, and again, it doesn't change. It doesn't mean that I don't love him. I love him and I want to support him and see him healthy and, and things. And, so man, loving people is, it's messy, it's hard, it's tough, but at the same time,
choosing love is the best way.
Oh yeah. I think my quote on our Instagram right now is a quote from Nelson Mandela. And it's like basically the effect of like love is kind of more of our default state, like we're wired to love. And it's when we're not loving and when we're feeding into that other side that it's destructive, to ourselves, to our community, but yeah, like you and anger, sometimes it just, you start blacking out and it just starts taking control, and whether or not you call that, evil or whatever, you want to call it. But sometimes I feel like there's something out there, that's, call it evil or whatever it is, but there's a battle.
Oh, there's a war, man.
There's a war, man.
There's a war.
If it's in my mind, my soul, whatever, the world, like there's, because it blows my mind, even though it shouldn't, it still blows my mind that there's things going on in this world that to our fellow humans and to the planet and to whatever. And it's like, why? Like, I don't understand.
It's literally just insane what happens and what people do to each other and the darkness that's in the world. I mean, I want to author a book, and the title is The War of Success, because and success, I don't mean like business success. I mean life success. Like, how do you get to a place in this life where you have a good balance of all the things that make a good life, a good, successful life? And man, my experience is this is my experience. I can't speak for others and what others believe, but what I believe is there is great purpose for my life, but there are evil forces that have been at work to try to prevent me from attaining what I'm supposed to do while I'm here. But that's my belief, and a lot of other people in my life that are close to me have seen it at work, like have seen the dark forces on me, literally, like where,
I've been to Africa, man. There's some crazy crap going on over there. I'll tell you what.
I would imagine. And I've only seen, and heard, but I've never been there. And like, it's scary, man. Like, as I've gotten to a healthier place within myself, within my 30s, but specifically within the last year, I like look back and at my life, and I don't have regret, but I just am like, man, I was so sick, like so lost, like the things that I did to myself and the places I chose to be and the just abuse that I did to myself. It's just like, what was wrong with me that I would do those things to myself? Because I didn't even come from that bad of an environment. I had some hard things happen growing up, but like, I guess some of those hard things just threw me down into a pattern of making poor decisions that just took me to a really dark, ugly, evil place. I mean, there was a point I remember embracing evil, like that's what I'm about, like that dark force, that dark energy. Like
just kind of give into it.
Yeah, like I was, not gonna, like I was just about it. Like I felt it. Literally, people could see it. Like people, from that time be like, dude, you used to come in a room, like people be scared, dog. Like you just had that strong energy, I think my energy's always been strong. And then it's wavered at times because of my uncertainty. But when I'm in a certain mode, whether it was at the time negative or more as I built up certainty in my positive nature now, there's an essence that you exude when you are in alignment with whatever you're deciding to be in. And it can be the dark side. If you're in alignment with the dark side and that's what you choose and decide, and there's no unwavering there, then it's going to be powerful. But if you're uncertain there, the people that are really in the life are going to take advantage of you. But if you're positive, and we're always going to waver, there's always some of that going on. But the stronger you are in whatever discipline you choose, whether it's good or evil, the more you're going to exude a certain energy and a vibration in your environment.
Well, it's interesting because I feel like almost like sometimes when you're on the right path or on a path that, like right path, whatever that is.
Yeah.
But when you're on a path where you almost sense that like, man, this is going to have such a powerful impact. And like, that's like when you get attacked, you know what I mean? It's like, if you believe in the devil or evil forces or whatever, like it's almost as if like, well, if you're not doing anything to change the world, then they're just going to leave you alone.
Yeah.
But if you're a world changer and you're out there and you're like, no, I'm going to change my city.
Exactly.
I'm gonna, and you've been gifted with the ability to have a presence.
Yeah.
Like it's gonna come in there and it's gonna be like, no, I'm gonna shift it and I'm gonna use you to my own desires, and we don't know what that is, I've never been to another dimension or anything, like I don't know, like it's, and obviously there's tons of different world religions trying to figure it all out, but it's clearly there's something. And I think that, as humans, that's where community becomes even more important, because where my strength is might be where your weakness is, and we can support each other. Yeah. And the more that we're vulnerable and real and authentic and transparent with each other, the better that we can actually work together as a team, right? 100%. Like if we're a team working together and I don't know what you suck at, I don't know where I need to come in and help you if you're about to deal with that, right? So if I know that, hey, like you struggle with whatever it is, we're out doing something together and I'm seeing something like, oh bro, like I can come over and pull you out of that situation before you sink into it, right? Because we're in a community together. We know each other. We're vulnerable. We know each other's weaknesses. Like, oh man, Bobby's about to, go what, or Bobby just like got destroyed at whatever it is, and I know how it's going to affect him. So I'm going to go over there and grab him and be like, bro, like, are you all right? Like, you're good, man. Like, I'm sorry you screwed up the drink. Like, it's fine. Just make another one, but community is just so important because I truly do believe that there's something, bigger and out there than us. And we have to, that we're fighting that's beyond just, each other, humans are just messed up individuals by themselves. The fact that I feel like there's a spiritual, battle going on too is just next level,
Isn't there, I think this is from the Bible, but doesn't it say somewhere where two or more people are in the together?
Sure.
What is it?
Or two or more are gathered, yeah.
That
God's like with us.
Yeah, so I think, there's so much in the Bible where it's about ancient like philosophy and knowledge on community and the human experience and all of these things, right? And there is that power when you are together as a group, as a community, that mastermind, that whole essence that is talked about. And, for me over the last few years, it's like, okay, so where do I really fit in now that I've separated myself? And I think I'm going through a period of time of, God or the universe, whatever you want to call it, putting me through, okay, you're in like this stage where you have to really prove yourself in a different way than you've ever had to before we start opening up possibilities for you again, because you've made the same mistakes over and over and over again, and it's going to be harder for you to get up and get going again this time. And but that's just my experience. It's how I interpret what's happening to me. I definitely, and I've read somewhere in a book just what you talked about, like you're not going to allocate your forces against an enemy that is not a problem, or...
Well, one of my favorite books is Screw Tape Letters from C.S. Lewis.
Screw Tape Letters. Huh?
And basically it's a famous, like C.S. Lewis is a famous author.
He wrote Narnia.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, right. But he's also like a theologian and all that stuff. But Screw Tape Letters, like someone told me about in college, and I actually didn't read it. I cheated and did the Audible, audiobook. But it was kind of cool because it was like a British accent and all that. But the whole book is basically letters from like demons to each other. So Screw Tape, I think, is like the name of one of the demons, and it's talking and they're writing. It's like a mentor and like, mentee kind of relationship between these two demons. And it kind of like got me thinking about like that spiritual nature and talk about different people and be like, oh yeah, he started going to church now. And it's like, okay, well, the battle's not over. Now we just got to make him complacent and make him do nothing, like make the rest of his life basically unfruitful. And so it's just like different things like that, where it's just like gets you thinking of like, oh man, like if there is a spiritual battle going on, if there is something, in a different dimension or whatever around us that's affecting us, it just got my battle cry kind of going. I was like, I'm not going to let some demon like control me or whatever, I want to have a story that is lasting and I'll leave a legacy of trying to create something better, and I think that if anything, that's what, gets me pumped, is this idea that, we can leave something, we can create a community that's better. Like if we truly did work together as a community and as a people, like we can make this world a better place. Like we could. Yeah. If we could just, hold hands and work together and truly try to learn how to empathize and connect. And it's just, humanity exists and survived evolution because we are a community species. Yes. I think the pre-Homo sapien like species, they failed. They were very isolated and they didn't really live in community. They kind of were out there trying to survive, and those species failed. But the Homo sapiens that survived were tribal, and they worked together as a community, and they built things together. And they, just like basic things in survival, like trying to do it by yourself versus like literally just one other person to be able to lift something up, build a canopy or whatever it is. Like we literally are designed to like work together to create something that's bigger and better for everybody. And we can do it. I think we can, and we just have to start breaking down and acknowledging and building empathy and hopefully understanding that we're part of a common family. Like it's still, I think being raised in like a half Korean, half American like household has allowed me to really objectively see the world in a different way, and like both an Eastern and Western mentality of this collectivism that you get from like the Eastern kind of world and Asian cultures, and then also the individual strengths that you get as in the Western world of like, you know, competition and individuality and entrepreneurship. But there has to be this like tension of both of those, like this yin and yang, where they're coming together to create something better and stronger. And so acknowledging that we win when we all win, but that doesn't mean that we can't compete with each other to make each other better and have that entrepreneurial fire to like create things and compete. And but
I love friendly competition.
Yeah, but we're doing that for the sake of not destroying our neighbor, but like making each other stronger and making our community stronger. I think there's something there. There's a solution there somewhere where we can hopefully get to the point where. But then it's discouraging when. Yeah.
Well, I think for me, how I kind of viewed it at this point is, you know, it'll never exist where we're all on the same page, doing the same thing, feeling this love and community. I don't believe that's actually possible, because I believe in yin yang. I believe in balance. I think there's wars and things at play that are way beyond our understanding. I mean, I'm honestly baffled when I just wake up and drive down here to the studio sometimes. Like just all the people doing whatever they're doing.
Dude, I was just in Seattle. There's so many people, different people.
When I drive into Seattle, I'm like, we are on a main vein right now. This is a main vein, and all these sales are coming to this correlation of this energy center. Like, it's weird.
It's wild.
Stuff's weird to me. That's just, I just am like, I don't know what's possible. And I think, you know, the more that people like me and you can encourage, like, we don't know what's right or what's the truth, but we do know if we choose love and to take care of people and to care about people, our world's going to be a better place. So you can either choose to, you know, do that or not. Yeah. But we want to connect and encourage people to join that. Yeah. And that's all we can do, you know, and the more each one person that we can get to be a part of that viewpoint or help them see things different from the way that they may be seeing it now. Because trust me, I've been in that place where I hated the world. I hated myself. I wanted to kill myself. I wanted to kill others. And I damn near was close to all of those things. And I've been like, you know, a hair's length away from kissing that all goodbye. You know what I mean? To each one of those things. I mean, so I know what the darkness is like, and I know what hatred is like. I know, but I've also, luckily, thank God, I guess, literally, is that I always had a calling back in me that, you know, I knew I was doing wrong, and I knew that I was meant for something higher than this, and I knew that there was still good in me, you know, and it's taken me a long time to really get back to understanding that and believing that, and then consistently making choices that are in alignment with that. That was really the biggest thing for me, is like, okay, discovering self-love and self-respect, but then to be able to actually consistently make decisions that are in alignment with that, that was really difficult process as well.
Well, I think that's a big thing, you know, that whoever's listening to the podcast is just, you know, I'd encourage you to recognize that we're all designed in our unique way to make this world better somehow. And that is like our deep calling. And there's some sort of energy or force that's trying to keep us from that. And I think that the amazing thing is that even the negative experiences in our life actually just make us more powerful at being a world changer. You know, like the most powerful, like, you know, pastors out there or missionaries are the ones who were addicts, who were on the street, who were like, did like have to deal with that stuff, because that is the experiences that they needed, that shaped them and made them uniquely powerful for helping others get out of that. Right. And so, like, you know, I could never go and deal with those things because I never had to struggle with addictions or whatever, things like that. Like, I can't speak with them with my own personal testimony to that thing. But can I go and help other business owners that have gone through or are going through the similar things that I've gone through when I was starting my business and like struggling and trying to keep it alive and learn and adapt. And so that's what I'm trying to do now, is like, how am I, I almost, it's weird, but I almost hate like charging people for my time, even though like people are like, you have knowledge, like your knowledge and experience, like you should start consulting and like sharing that with people. And because I just want to give it away, but I also have 3 kids to feed and, a mortgage and stuff. And so I've been trying to like do that on the side of like, how can I bless people with some of my knowledge and experience and hopefully help them be successful in what they feel called to do using my experiences and my unique, upbringing and knowledge. And so I think that's, if we can all position ourselves in acknowledging that, we're all uniquely created with infinite worth to be world changers, and not let the darkness, keep us down and keep us from that, because there's enough of it out there, man. It's, so.
Yeah, it just comes down to making the choice of what side are you going to be on? What are you going to choose? Are you going to choose love, or are you going to choose the evil, darkness, hate, whatever it is, or like...
I'm a type 3, man. I choose love. Love wins. Everything's taught me love always wins in the end. So why do I want to be on the losing side? I might as well.
Exactly, man. That's also a great point.
I don't want to burn forever. I don't know about you, but I would rather be like, hey, I'd rather err on the side of goodness and like trying to bring goodness back in. None of us know at the end of the day what's going to happen after we die, but I'd rather err on the side of doing my best, So, yeah, dude, how much time we got left? We just keep talking?
Typically, we go to 2 hours. I think we're
2 hours. Oh man, I didn't even realize
we're 126 right now.
We're at 126. We can wrap it up.
I didn't realize we talked for 2 hours. I mean,
we've been at 1.5 hours now.
Nice.
So we can wrap it up.
No, we don't need to wrap it up. If there's another topic, I mean, what's a good topic you want to kind of transition into?
Yeah, we can just transition more into some of Indaba directly again.
Sure.
So actually, one question I wanted to ask is doubling back to when in the beginning of our conversation, you went to South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
What was the reason that you went there?
Well, I originally went as part of my graduate studies. I had to have a internship on my as part of my summer between to get credits, and so I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what I wanted to do or whatever, and so I had an opportunity given to me from a friend of mine who was on a board, and anyway, so I was able to basically create my own internship because he was part of this nonprofit that did work in South Africa, and so. He's like, I'll go and talk to the board and we'll see. And so I got basically an all expense trip to South Africa and a place to stay and everything. And I was there for about 2 months. And then I was able to basically do whatever I wanted in terms of like creating my own internship program. And so how it worked was I spent the first month just visiting nonprofits in the community. And so we were just south of Durban, in the area of Port Shepstone, which is a smaller community. But there was a few nonprofits doing different things. So HIV/AIDS was, I mean, it's still a big thing, but back then it was kind of, I feel like at one of its peaks of just being a struggle, and medication was just starting to kind of become available to fight it. Mm-hmm. And so one nonprofit was doing a lot of just in-home like visits. And so I got to go with them and literally go into these shanty towns where there's no power, electricity, and there's just sewage going through, and people were just living in little shanty shacks, and they would just visit them to basically check on them and see how they could help and try to get them medication if they could. But they were just battling a lot of different things. I mean, they were battling a lot of false information around the medication, thinking that it would basically it wasn't real, or it was just a trick, or I mean, there was at the time where I was just learning a lot of new things, like I mean, there's like even some tribes that believed in order to get rid of HIV and AIDS, you had to like have sex with a virgin in order to like heal yourself. I was like, this is mind blowing. Like I can't even believe like these things
Yeah.
existed.
Yeah.
And so obviously you'd be seeing all these like young women getting raped and obviously then getting HIV, and like it's just like this crazy thing happening on, literally like
Just like,
a ridiculous amount of people dying like every day. And then to learn that we literally had the medication to keep them alive, but they wouldn't even take it. And then the ones that they would take the medication, you have to stay on it for the rest of your life, because if you stop, the virus it's no longer effective. So then you have to change to a different medication. And at the time, they only had 3 different types. And so once you've gone through all 3, then none of them work anymore. And what would happen is they start feeling better. So then they stop taking it and then they become immune to it. And then they go. And then to meet people coming into the clinic that I worked at that they were on the last one, they don't have anything. They're just dying. I remember going into the clinic one day that I was at, and I was just working in the office, and just hear this wailing and screaming, and it was like the most horrific cry you've ever heard like in your life. And then I go out there to see what's going on, and she's literally like laying flat like a plank, and you've got like 6 people holding her up and like carrying her into the counselor's office because she just found out that her mom died overnight, from HIV AIDS. And she literally just talked with her the night before and then came in the next day and she's gone, and she's just hysterical. And it was just a mind-blowing experience. I've never really experienced like death like that, and like just that much death and that much like pain, and something that literally like is preventable because we have the science and technology to prevent it, but it still happens because there's so much just education and access to them. If anything, it taught me I do not want to go into the medical profession. Like I could not handle it. Like that's just like life and death every day. Like, man, that was just a life-changing experience, just seeing that level of poverty and pain, and realizing that like my problems are like nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing compared to like
what these people experience every
entire
day.
like culture, entire like millions of people, like are struggling with and deal with. And so I think, I'm a big believer that everyone has gotta to go on some sort of either studying abroad or like, man, shoot, join the Peace Corps, like do something, but experience parts of the world that are in extreme poverty like that, because it will wake you up to realizing that we joke when we say like first world problem or whatever, but it's not a joke at the same time, because it's like
ridiculous.
It's crazy out there. And people like what's going on in Ukraine, like just like the amount of just death and like destruction, and like it's like I thought we were past this. Like I thought we were a culture and a civilization that was beyond like physical war. I thought at this point I thought it was just economic war, and like, you know what I mean? Like, and to see that there's still literally people just killing other people, like it's just mind blowing to me. So,
I mean, just even within our own city, like amount of murders that are happening, and but yes, I mean, then you go to a place like you're saying, like Ukraine or like South Africa at the time, and I've seen a village way out in the Maya jungle, like where these people were living. It was eye-awakening for me, but I want to do more like actual work, amongst something like what you're talking about, and that's where I would love to get city chapters too, where it's actually involved with community work, issues abroad, issues domestically, all those kinds of things. Because that's really what I want to get this organization to be about. One is to, have individuals on this podcast. I think it's a great place where I'm starting from breaking outside of clothing with the podcast, because it's getting me these conversations with people and helping me learn and understand, and also to have deeper connections with you. Like, I obviously know a lot more about the way you think now, and the way you kind of view the world is very similar to my viewpoints and my experiences. And yeah, so I've traveled a bit, but not like that, not for like extended periods of times, and not for a cause like that. Mine have always been basically vacation based, essentially. And there's something that's been calling to me for a while, where it's like I do want to go overseas and like enter and do a program where I'm just at service to people. Because you get so wrapped up in our society about you, like you, like me. It's me, my problems, what do I need to do to get me to a better place? It's never about how do you raise up others with you most of the time. I mean, we talk about that, but there's so much that doesn't really seemingly align with what we talk about, like, I know that there's amazing people doing amazing things in our city, in other cities, in other communities that are really making big change. So, and it's probably all to me that I'm not involving myself with more of what's going on. And that's something that I know that I need to start taking more action on, is being a part of things that are going on and just showing up, because I haven't been really showing up to a lot of things, just for my own personal things that I had going on. But now that I'm like back at this place, it's like, okay, I do need to start being more involved in the community. I'm trying to build a community-based organization brand. There's certain responsibilities that I believe come with that, by my own standard. So,
well, maybe one great way you can help give back is maybe bring some folks on to your show that are doing great work in the city.
Yeah.
I even looking up at the wall here, I mean, like Spokane River Keepers, things like that. But there's ministries, nonprofits, faith or non-faith based, that are on the front lines. And that's why, like, I never really felt called to go to Africa. Like, I felt called to Spokane. I felt like to find out that West Central is the poorest neighborhood in the state of Washington, like my own hometown, like what? Like there are neighbors in need right here. You don't have to fly to another country to, and then obviously in the last few years, like homelessness is huge right now.
Yeah.
It's a huge, I mean, Camp Hope, right, is like, I don't think anyone knows the right answer. And I don't know if there is a right answer, quote unquote, but because I would hope that people on both sides of the aisle genuinely are trying to figure out how to help people and and make the right decision. But there's a lot of factors that go into that, and a lot of opinions that go into that. But like I forget the guy's name, but he does a lot of work with the homeless. It'd be interesting to bring him in here and like get his perspective on homelessness and the best ways that as a community, how can we support them? Like, do we give them $100 bill when we see them standing there on the corner? Or, one little way that Indaba tries is we have a coffee subscription service.
Yeah.
And so you're going to get a box of, once a month or once a week or every couple of weeks with coffee in it. And so I was just like, what if we found a way to try and encourage, because part of our goal is to encourage other people to love people too, like cultivate connection. And so I was like, what if we put a little card in there? So we have a little card in there with a little inspirational quote from Nelson Mandela and stuff about doing good in the world. And on the back side, it says, like, we encourage you to turn this box into a little gift box, or like an Indaba love box, and fill it full of things that like a homeless person would need. Like just necessity things, like socks, right, is like one of the top things, right? But just basic things, and there's like a list. And we check off one of the boxes already, because every time you buy a bag of coffee from us, we provide a meal to somebody, working with the local food bank. And so we're like, okay, we've already provided a meal for someone. Now, like, fill this box full of stuff, tape it up, put it in your car. The next time you're driving around, you see somebody, just be like, hey, because I'm a big believer that I don't think, I mean, there's definitely instances where some people just need cash. Like the other day, I could tell they were trying to fill up their gas tank and they were upset. Their card wasn't working. They were visibly upset, like they needed to go and get their kid or whatever. And I'm kind of listening in on their conversation. I never give anybody cash, like ever, but I just was like, you know what? Like, I'm going to buy I'm going to get them some gas. Like, here's some money for gas. Like, I didn't have time to just give them, like, stand there, but, a little gift box or go buy them a meal or do something. Those are little ways, because I feel like a lot of that is that actually going to like end homelessness? No. But is it going to help maybe hopefully reposition your heart a little bit and maybe shape you to lean more into empathy and love? Because a lot of times it's more for you and trying to shape you, and not in a way that's like patting yourself on the back, like I'm a good person, but hopefully changing your posture of like your attitude towards other humans, right?
Yeah.
Versus like an attitude of like, oh, that guy's an idiot. Like he must have made bad decisions. Like he's homeless because he's dumb or whatever it is.
That one drives me crazy.
Yeah. To like, no, that's a fellow human being who's in need, and who knows what their story is. Well, you don't know their story.
Exactly. That's what I try to tell people that try to pass judgment on homeless people. I'm like, you probably cannot even imagine what that person has been through, what they grew up in, what they were born into, the abuse that they encountered. Surely, some people just made bad decisions along the way, but a majority of those people, the cards were stacked against them. You do not end up like that if you were raised in a decent environment. Most people do not. It's because you're born into something that is so messed up that you can't figure out how to take care of yourself or do right by yourself. Like, and plenty of us that are born into decent situations have a hard time. Great situations have a hard time with it.
Yeah.
The saving grace.
You have a support structure.
You have a support structure.
These people might not have even a family that to even lean on.
They were, they could be born addicted to meth. They could be born addicted to heroin. There's all sorts of factors that come into play that are beyond our understanding of just seeing them on the corner and being like, oh, they're just a fucked up person. And they don't deserve anything because they have choices. And that's the one that really pisses me off too. Like, well, everybody's got choices. Yes, we all got choices. Your choices were never the same as theirs. So don't pass judgment on them. Because you like some people I know them. I'm like, you haven't been through hardly anything to pass judgment on this person and what they probably came from. And you can barely handle a hard situation great yourself. Imagine what these people went through, and whether they want to be mad about what I'm saying or not, but that's the truth. Most of those people, like, you think people want to live like that? You think they chose this? Like,
you don't think they'd rather be in a nice house somewhere?
Like it would, so, but you are right in saying that I should have those people on, because that's already been in the works. And that's something I want to do. That's really some of the most important people I do want to talk to learn from, to see how maybe I can get city chapters involved in helping, some of these organizations, or promoting them, or whatever it is that I can become a part of that, that help system.
Yeah, because I think the people that are doing the tough work don't get enough
I agree.
airtime.
I agree, dude.
There's
straight up.
They're on, because they're busy being on the ground, like, and handing out water bottles, or trying to set up a warming shelter or cooling shelter, or and then a lot of times they just become political pawns or tools, and they try to get over politicized. But
they don't have a platform to speak on.
Yeah.
And if they do, it's a little clip on the news, for a short little second.
Yeah.
So
it's true.
The biggest thing for me is I wanted to get comfortable with doing this podcast and speaking to people and learning how to do interviews. If I'm good at it, how much work do I need to do at it? And there will always be work to be done, but this will be, I believe, our 14th chapter. So I'm getting to that comfortability level where I'm like, all right, I could start talking to people that I don't know about deeper matters that I really have interest in and learning from these people. Because right now, honestly, I'm kind of using this podcast as an educational system for myself, to learn and speak with others and to create that connection, to create that community of individuals that are now have some ties to city chapters, whether it's just that podcast and us sitting for that time. But now I know you at a level decent enough to where, hey, I can send you an email or I can call you or, have you on the podcast again when there's something great going on that you accomplished or, there's a pressing matter that we need to speak about in our community. And City Chapters podcast could become that one of the platforms, just one of the platforms that people can listen in on, and you could learn something. If you really want to get involved, well, these people can literally tell you because they're running organizations that are in the trenches, like you're talking about. So, me and you, man, we think a lot alike. There's a lot of symbiotic thoughts that we have. So
Yeah.
I really, appreciate that because that is the vision. I definitely want to have individuals on, and that's going to start soon.
Yeah. So you got the mayor coming next week? Is that?
I'm not sure I'm ready for the
City
mayor.
chapters. I mean, city mayor.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's, I think that you're taking a step that of putting yourself out there, like you said, like warming up with people that bringing them on. But yeah, I mean, prepping some questions, bro, like, and having some tough questions for people and having them ready. Like if you're meeting with someone who's working with homeless, like, like a good question is like, what is like one thing that someone in Spokane can do this week to help end the homelessness? I'd love to know from a community leader who works with homeless every day.
I want to know too.
I mean, is it going down and buying someone a meal? Is it like writing a check to this organization? Is it maybe just going down to Camp? Like I drive by Camp Hope. Our roastery is actually right down the street there. And I drive by it like almost every day.
I live right up the hill from it. So, yeah.
So it's like, but have I ever stopped? No, probably because I have this sense of like fear or whatever. But what was crazy is I saw that starting.
Yeah.
I would drive by that every day and I saw the very first RV too, that sat there and I thought to myself, I knew it was coming. And the first flashback that I had was South Africa. Because I would literally, my commute to work in South Africa, I would drive right past something just like that every day. Wow. And after about like 20 days or so, I started to like not like purposely, but automatically just start ignoring it. When you're on your commute.
Yeah.
And I caught myself. And I was like, this is what happens to people. Like it's the humans, like we start to put blinders on and that's how that ends up continuing because we ignore
that
it.
Separation factor.
Yeah. Literally the richest people in the world in South Africa living next to the poorest people in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, I was staying at someone's property, flat from the church that donated like a flat. And it's literally just the guest house to their main house that's in a gated community that has a pool that overlooks the ocean. And I'm literally staying in this place as I'm like doing work in like a poor thing. Every day I was going through culture shock. Like I don't know how people could live there. Like you're literally surrounded by like so much wealth and poverty. Like you literally do. You become numb to it. Like you become numb to, oh, that's just how it is.
And that kind of ties back to that like love and protection too, because I think deep down the reason that we try to like look down or scoff at homeless people is that really you are terrified that that could be you. And that's so scary for people to really acknowledge and put themselves in that person's shoe. So they try to, act like they're above when they really know, like deep down, we all really truly know that could be you.
Oh yeah.
And that in itself is so terrifying to people that they act in ways to defend themselves from that thought that I'm better, that I'm better than you comes out. I'm better than you because look at what I have, or the car I'm driving while you're standing there.
Or I made better choices.
Oh yeah, that one gets me. Like, yes, we all do have choices. All our choices were not presented the same way.
That's true.
And that's just
what's the whole classic? Yeah, the cards are stacked against you, right? Like, I mean, you're dealt. Everyone's dealt a different hand.
Yeah.
We can't all be, like the crazy connection is Elon Musk, for example, was born into a wealthy South African family.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't come from nothing.
Mm-hmm.
He came from something and just created more something.
And I think that's really just a cover-up story because he's an alien. No, I'm joking.
I knew it. Yeah.
He's not real. He's not a human.
He's not human. We can go into a whole conversation about spaceships and stuff. But yeah, my dad saw one when he was a kid. He took a picture of it. So
I've seen two.
You've seen two personally?
Yeah, so one...
It's going to turn into a spaceship UFO podcast.
Well, yeah, let's get there. We can do it and then close it out. But
where were you?
I can say what I saw. Okay. Now, this was back in the day. This is at a time I was smoking weed, so granted. But this weed was not hallucinogenic, so...
as far as you knew, yeah.
Yeah, as far as I knew. I don't know if it was laced or what, but... anyway, we were smoking. We were out actually in Indian Trail, and we're sitting there. We're smoking in a car, and all of a sudden, middle of the sky, this object lights up, and it has like 4 parallel neon blue lights, and it goes from like mid sky, high in the sky, but not space high, but like mid sky, just swoop right into the ground, and I was just like, I kind of mumbled something under my breath, and my other homie's like, and he don't believe in this stuff. he don't, never, so he's like, what'd you say? I was like, oh, nothing, bro. I'm tripping, man. I just saw something. He's like, no, dog, I saw that too. What the fuck was that?
Oh, and I was trippy.
I was like, man, I have no idea, but it was something not normal
well, that
aircraft.
Stuff's becoming like all exposed, and there's a whole new NASA like research thing on it.
Yeah.
But my dad, I mean, I don't know how much I'm allowed to share, but I mean, he was in the Air Force, and he's got stories like, I've read there's something. Well, I don't know what it is, but it's something.
I don't know what it is either.
I used to think it was just multidimensional beings, or it was like even like humans from the future, like like
humans from the future. I like that theory. That's a good one.
Or like an ancient advanced civilization that lives underwater.
Yeah, I love
a lot of them go underwater.
Yeah,
where are they going?
I love so
it's Atlantis. Like, where'd the Mayans go? Maybe they actually are like super advanced. I don't know.
I read this military excerpt from this submarine. This guy was in the Navy for this, and he was stationed on a nuclear submarine, and so he comes up. They're like up in the Arctic somewhere, and this spacecraft comes out of the ocean, and he sees it, and he reports it to his higher ups that are on the sub, and they're like, "What?"
yeah.
And they're like, he's like, I just seen this, and they're like, you didn't see anything. Yeah. He's like, no, I just saw it. He's like, no, you didn't see anything.
Yeah.
And he's like, what? Like, he didn't get it at first until they kept telling him like, no, you didn't see anything.
Yeah.
You'll never speak about this again.
Yeah.
And like, he was like,
it's almost like this strange denial. And so now I feel like because it is more mainstream, that hopefully like more data will be like actually collected. Because like, I mean, instances like that where my dad, same story, like, commanding officers training exercise, right? And it's like, training exercise. Like, it wasn't even reported because it was a training exercise, and so
the way I'll tie this all in for us speaking about this is, it's funny that people think that they absolutely know the truth, that they do not exist. That aliens do not exist, that we're the only ones that also, It's funny that people maybe think that they do know they exist. To me, like, anybody that thinks they know the truth about something in this world is going to be a problem. They're going to be a problem. Now, I believe there are certain truths that we should all hear by. That's basically respect others, don't hurt others. Those truths I think we all can agree on, essentially. Most of us would agree on that. But the fact that, like, people like, oh no, that I like to think of all the possibilities, the mystery of life, the mystery of our experience, the mystery of how did I even end up here with you today on this podcast? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just
Totally.
like, it's something that I've been finding funny is like thanking God for another day. Because when I was younger, I was like, another day, so what? You know what I mean? Now that I'm older and I've gotten through what I've gotten through, I'm like, man, I wake up sometimes, I'm like, it's weird that I'm waking up here still.
It's weird that I'm waking up.
Like, it's just a funny, I
true.
love thinking about it. Like, what am I doing waking up
That's
here
actually,
still every
it's
day?
funny that you said it's actually some of the very first things out of my mouth in the morning is thank God for another day.
Yeah.
And it's, I think that that's a good way to just acknowledge that there's more work to be done that you can do. There's more good that you can do here. And it's almost like I feel like God takes you home when your time's done.
Yeah.
And whether it be disease, sickness, I think that all of those things can be, redeemed into something good. And that's the crazy thing, and so I've been growing a lot. I know that same thing with, I think, your faith and your spirituality. I think it's the same thing. Like no one's come back from the dead. God knows what's after. I mean, you could claim to have had these visions or whatever, but at the end of the day, I mean, they call it faith for a reason. And I think we have to acknowledge that, it's a mystery, and
I love that. It's a mystery.
Yeah. And we hold things loosely.
Yeah.
I think what happens when you hold tight onto things that's when the things become divisive, and people do things that are almost against their other values because they're holding on so tight
Resistance.
that this has to be true. Like, this has to be true.
Yeah.
And it's like, is it though?
Yeah.
Like, does it?
Why does it happen?
And why? And does that supersede like loving other people? Like, what's more important, loving your children, or holding on to this belief that whatever
how many
it
wars
is.
have stemmed from that, right? It's insane.
Yeah. So I think we cultivate connection and encourage people to be open.
Yeah.
And connect and create empathy, and those are the building blocks of a healthy world and a healthy humanity, is breaking down those barriers and causing people to. It's okay. I think part of it is that people are afraid, and there's a sense of security when they can say, no, this is
for sure. That's the biggest
absolute.
part, I think.
And it's like, nothing's absolute.
Yeah.
Nothing is.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe the fear of, like, it's easier for your mind, once it believes it knows the truth, not to let it be tampered with, because that's your reality that you created. And if somebody's testing that reality, you have to be defensive against it, because if you let go of it, then what is all this? What is the purpose of this? What is my understanding of this at that point? And people try to defend that. I've literally had all those things shattered within myself. And they were hurtful, hard to deal with. Some of it was like amazing too when it happened, when it fell apart and I realized, meditations, hallucinogens, different things like that have also helped me broaden my viewpoints and horizons. But the one thing that I think I really was struggling with, and I want to tie back into what you had said earlier about, people thinking once they get to this place or achieve this thing that then they're going to be happy. Right. And I realized at some point through traveling, through a lot of different experiences, like, I wasn't happy, and I always had this thought like, oh, once I become this and I get these things and I accomplish that, then I'm going to feel successful. I'm going to feel accomplished. I'm going to have this feeling. And I read a lot too. So a lot of reading has helped me broaden my horizons and viewpoints, and understanding that now is now. If you can't decide now to have it. Another great book by Viktor Frankl, The Search of the Meaning for Man, or The Search for the Meaning of Man, or something like that.
Sure.
Either way, he was locked in a concentration camp, at like one of the worst ones. And he was a philosopher, but the whole book is about how you can choose to be happy no matter what your environment or circumstances are. And this is coming from a man that went through one of the most devastating experiences that we, have documented. And that's pretty amazing that he found out a way to decide that it doesn't matter what these people do to me. I'm going to choose to be happy.
Yeah, I learned that principle from Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of a Successful Person.
I've read that one.
But the first habit he mentioned, it might even be the same person, but this idea that humans are like the only creatures that have essentially the freedom of mind or imagination. Like they cannot, no one can control what we think.
Yeah.
So and even the choices that we make, and so he literally lived in his own imagination in this camp, and to the point where the guards became his friends, and it was just he created his own reality, and it's like you can be going through the worst possible thing ever, but we're the only creatures on the planet that can shape our attitude and our mind, and have control over that. And so it's a pretty amazing thing to think through. And it's also gives some hope to those that may be struggling with wherever it is that they're at, Yeah. And again, it also speaks to earlier talking about perspective and experiencing the world and seeing that, it's a lot bigger than just our own little world here in Spokane. So
the other thing that has helped me is just realizing it's never enough. That was the thought that I had. It's never enough. You keep feeling like, oh, I need this. When is it enough? If you think you can get these things and then at that time you'll be happy, once you get them, you're never going to be happy, because once you get it, you're going to want something else. And it's just that cycle. So slowing down and learning to be grateful for what you have now. For me, and I can't speak for everybody, and I can't say this would work for everybody, but for me, I realized, man, I have so much to be thankful for. It's insane. And I'm over here, really disrespecting God or disrespecting the great mystery, because I am so blessed. I have so much to be thankful for. I'm blessed with so much, and I've never been happy with it until within the last few years. I was never happy with the abundance that was already existence in my life, and I never felt enough. I'm not enough. I got to be more. I got to be better. I was never happy with myself and who I was, and so learning how to practice just dude, it's okay, bro, where you're at, who you are right now. You are trying to be better, and that's all that matters right now. And you can be thankful and happy for that.
Totally.
And so that's been a huge thing that's helped me actually heal, and just heal from the trauma that I put myself through.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, man, I
I
mean,
think we're good on time. I hope you had fun.
Yeah. We crushed it, man.
Yeah, dude.
That was a great conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on.
Absolutely.
We'll put, all your Instagrams and like websites in the show notes so people can find out more about Indaba if they would like and you. So thank you, man. I appreciate it, Bobby.
Yeah, it was fun hanging out and chatting. Thanks for having me on the podcast. And I hope folks can take one or two things away and from the podcast. But if there's one thing to take away, it's that aliens are real.
Aliens are real. Yeah. Elon is the president of them. So anyway, I'm your host, Bobby J. This is City Chapters Podcast, and this chapter was Bobby Enslow from Indaba.